Well, welcome everybody to Anxiety Simplified show that goes beyond psychology. And the mother-daughter duo, sorry, I am Joanne Williams, a 30-year mental health professional sharing the science of psychology, and Seraphine, who's a mystic who goes beyond the mind's understanding of a lot of stuff into alternative healing. And you can see us not only in podcasts and Anxiety Simplified on all platforms. I also have a Roku show that you can see Anxiety Simplified, as well as now on YouTube. And at Anxiety Simplified Podcast is the name of the channel. And we also have a daily radio show on iHeartRadio on Power Me Up Station. And it's on Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And Mondays we have a double header, 4:30 and 5 Pacific time. So please look for us. But today's show, it is on how Joanne uses energy work in psychotherapy sessions. And last time, Sarah, we did on your practice and how you used energy work. And so this time I'm going to talk more. They're very similar, we found in many ways. But so, Sarah, I don't know if you have anything to say about that last time and what that was like. But now we're going to switch over a little bit and talk more about my practice. Any thoughts there?
No, I'm ready to jump in. I've been trying to think about what I wanted to talk about today, so I'm excited to do some more.
All right, great. And the next show is we're going to do an actual session on Sarah with some of these energy techniques that I do use with clients. And one of the questions I'm going to kind of ask or is, what does energy work look like in psychotherapy in that perspective? Because when clients come into my office, usually there's some kind of traumatic event that has happened, or they have anxiety about flying or social situations. And there's so many different approaches that this can really go from. And so when I start counseling somebody, I always do an assessment first. Yeah, a form. So I get their symptoms and we talked about it. But then a lot of this goes into more non-traditional kinds of
Mhm.
ways that I do practice because I do, as Sarah does, recognize how energy flows and the emotions can create blocks or resistance in that flow that allows emotions really to flow, and each one of the emotions have a message. So that's what we're really looking for is energy to keep flowing and to take the message from an emotion to allow it to keep flowing. And I'll speak more in detail about that in the next show when I actually do some of this with Sarah to keep this. And we use the word, Sarah, in the flow. And that's kind of
Mhm.
really kind of what we're talking about here. I feel like the effects.
Yes, I agree.
And and then also how to let go of whatever the blocks are in that moment instead of avoiding, denying, pushing it down to deal with it later, putting it on the shelf, or justifying it by judging it as good or bad. Last time we kind of talked a little bit about, judging things good or bad. Any thoughts there, Sarah?
I think your space for judgment is a little bit harder because we are taught to process our emotions in this judgmental way where I think I come from a very different angle where you definitely see it as well, where energy is energy and there's no judgment placed on energy, where emotions we're taught we should have them or not have them, and
Mm.
we should or should not feel a certain way. And that's a much harder place to come from. So I think,
Yeah,
yeah.
I would agree. And, I think the other thing that I've even had clients tell me or say, can I get rid of my emotions? I don't know. Oh, please don't do that. Let's understand how to use them in ways that can be really helpful. Because I do equate them to kind of like an internal guidance system. They'll tell you where you're going. If it is in the direction that you want of your goal or what you want in your life, it'll really tell you. If you're happy and excited and passionate, then you're going in the right direction. But when you start to get down or this is, frustrating or anxious, it's really showing you what's happening. Um, so yeah, don't get rid of your GPS, whether it's in your car or in your heart.
Well, interesting, in the on the spiritual side of work, emotions are so vital to being able to move into that next vibrational, spiritual, awakening experience. So it's a really important aspect of spiritual work, our emotions and understanding our emotions, using our emotions as that guidance system where we talk about them being our teachers in energy work, but certain in spirituality, they are the gateway to
Absolutely.
everything in so many ways.
But do you find in your practice people don't understand them, don't see them as part of this even spiritual journey or um the importance of them?
Oh, for sure. I think people are
Yeah, I
caught
do
up
too.
in I need to always be positive. I always need to be happy.
No,
And the
no,
more I deny
no.
these other set of dark emotions, the better I'm going to be at being
Mm,
light and positive, of course, but it can't be denied. You can't deny part of yourself and be whole. So yeah, that is a definitely a misconception that I see often.
you deal with as well. And we just had a little bit of internet disconnect. So people, if you just had that little pause there, it's what it was. Yeah, I mean I have that agree and that's kind of even the judgment we're talking about in a sense that it's good emotion or bad emotion. Instead of just seeing it as some message or something trying to tell you something or a piece of information that it's just there. It's not a good or a bad necessarily, but it's an indicator of where you're at. And so yeah, the other judgment I guess I'll briefly stay on is the other thing I think people fear I, as the counselor, will judge them and their issues and fearful of my whatever judgment, I guess, condemnation. And I just really like to reassure people that's not my job. That is not what I'm here for. And and I think the way I like to explain it is these are your issues. They're not mine to take on or to judge. I am here to guide or to counsel you, and you can take it or not. But that I don't want to judge anybody. That's so, I mean, it's not appropriate.
No. No, and I think that's how the rest of the world operates. So why wouldn't it be the same when you come to see someone to talk about and work through emotions until they find out differently? So I can see how people get there. And one of the most common ways that I see it in my practice is um, people often have energetic spiritual ghost experiences, and they have denied it within them, and
Mm.
they come feeling like I'm going to judge them for this otherworldly experience because they don't have the tools to describe it. And I think a lot of people will say things like, okay, what I'm going to say is kind of crazy, or
Preface
I
it.
yeah, and everything goes here, everything goes, we all have, and I'm like, this is the world I live in. So
But I think people have judged them for it
yes.
harshly. I think that's part of that fear as well. People have maybe called them crazy or that's stupid or, something like that in a way that, oh, okay, we don't talk about this or at some time in their life, oh, no more. We don't talk about it like that.
Yeah, definitely. And I really try to break down those barriers and also talk about the way I see the world and the way that
Mm,
spirit interacts with me, and that it is a normal thing because so many people do have experiences. They just
mhm.
either, it's uncomfortable, or they can't really relate or understand, but really starting to break down those barriers so that they can talk freely.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go in a little bit different direction, but it's still energy. And I'm going to get your opinion on this one, Sarah. Really for the last 9 years, I have been certifying clients to have either emotional support, animal, or psychiatric for the last 3 years. But really, I'm seeing animals releasing resistance for a client's anxiety so that maybe they can fly or go to places with their dog, live in peace, maybe in their house. And there are three federal laws too that really have recognized it, 50-year-old laws. I mean, these are not, um, just a couple years old, that we've had 50 years or more than that are protecting your rights to use an animal or a dog if you have psychological symptoms from something that maybe happened in your life, a trauma or whatever that affects you seriously. And you can always see more about that for us if you're interested in that to qualify at esapros.com. But, think about how dogs help us, Sarah. And it's like, what do dogs make you feel like? And that's a feeling, but it's an energetic way. What do you think about that?
Well, to me, dogs are unconditional love. And if they are looking at
Oh.
you as their person, as their everything, that evokes something within us to touch the love that we have within. So that is a frequency and an understanding of the love that is shared between, two beings. And so the more that someone is in love, like in the frequency of love, you know the happier, the more joyful, typically that person is when they can stay in those states. And as an animal who doesn't have an attachment to someone else's trauma or emotions, they can often energetically absorb some of those, and help process them. So energetically, it makes a lot of sense to me, where not only is that pet evoking a strong emotion inside of them, safety, security, love, but then the pet energetically starts absorbing some of their anxiety or whatever they have going on. I can see that relationship on an energetic scale of how important and how that works, from the looking on
Yeah,
the.
and that's so beautiful the way I love the way it's just love. And that's what people say. They don't judge me. They don't talk bad. They just love me. The
Mhm.
way you put it was really sweet. I absolutely find that. And people really do use their animals. A lot of them, it's really a first entry into even talk therapy because if they have their dog, they feel more secure. And so a lot of my clients do come from continue with me in talk therapy because of their dog, and they do meet me, and I think therapist a lot of times it almost feels like we might have, I don't know, I don't know what kind of hat we would wear, but we're odd or something. And so it normalizes us. I think a lot of times when they meet us, connect with our, dogs and animals, it just seems like is a real connector there.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but and I've also introduced now more lately. I mean, I've done it for 20 years, actually introducing actually energy therapies into my practice. A lot of them were ones like, and now it's become even more accepted for like thought field therapy or the tapping on acupressure points to relieve
Mhm.
anxiety or trauma. I think more people, EFT, emotional freedom technique is another one, Gary Craig. Thought field therapy was Dr. George Callahan, and And that's, think about acupressure points. Those are energy rivers, we'd call them, or energy fields that are running. So, yeah, there really is a lot of connection here. We just kind of don't usually talk in that way a lot of times as a therapist. Um, but I absolutely use a lot of different techniques. But let me walk you through kind of what I do as a therapist. Really, I always do an assessment form that's completed with the symptoms. And then because I am a licensed mental health professional, which means that I have a bachelor's, a master's degree, and then additionally, I have 2 more years after my master's degree to practice before I can get a license. So it's about 8 years I have to do get that license. So I'm very regulated and restricted, really, from sharing any information and from my clients, and that I can be, held liable even about sharing anything. And I can be an expert witness in court, and now then practice on my own once I have my license. So I know you kind of went through it with me in many ways, but yeah, but now I've done it, and I really, and it is a little different because like many coaches or whatever, they do not have to go through that kind of strenuous regulated kinds of ways of being. And so I think in some ways it does limit me, even if I do like it's like, and so they sign these consents that, what they're gonna do, my typical sessions and what do you do if kind of things. But if I do energy therapy, I even have them sign a different consent because it is a little different than what most therapists do. So I even have a different consent form for that. But once that's done, we always decide a direction that we're going to go. And most clients really come to me because of an impediment that's going on in their life or an interference in work or in relationships, or they just want to grow emotionally and don't know how or don't have the
Yeah.
skills to. So in my practice, I always teach skills and tools so that the client can take these home and use them even that day, even when they leave the session. So that's what I'm always doing is teaching till I think that's what we do here too a lot is really teaching some tools,
Yeah.
even in our shows, wouldn't you say?
I agree. I feel like we do this because we feel we have something to share and we want
Hmm.
these tools to be readily available to anyone who wants them. And the more that we can share, the more that we can help create a healthy collective that, for all people, we feel like the world is in a better place because the more happy other people are and them finding their happiness, that's really what it's all about. In my
I
opinion,
agree.
I know part of why we did this was really to give tools, and it's on the radio. It's available to anybody who is interested in podcasts.
Free.
Free. Yeah.
Yeah. So really you are getting something here that again you can always look into more, but yeah, we want to share this is why we do it. So I would love to start with the practice, the first one that I often share. And I call it my ACT process or ACT process that I recognize that everything does start with our thoughts. And
Mhm.
then our thoughts produce an emotion. And then you take an action or behavior that's produced from that thought or emotion. So I really like to be able to put these connections together for people. What are you thinking? That's affecting or they're creating the emotion that is creating the fear or the behaviors. And if we take the example of, I get a lot of people that have a fear of flying. And if you're thinking that you're going to die
Yeah.
if you get on a plane, what would the natural emotion be? Of course, it's going to be fear, right?
Right.
And then the behavior is going to be, okay, I don't want to fly, or it starts other kind, oh, I'll just avoid, or I'll say I'm sick, I can't come, or whatever. So, part of what you can start to do, the A in the ACT is really become more aware of what you're thinking. notice, because a lot of people don't even notice that that's where it really starts, is
Mhm.
really with your thoughts. And then that will drive the emotion either direction. Then you can change it. You are in control of this. And most people don't think they are. But you are. And the C in the act is really to learn to connect that thought with the emotion to create a better outcome for yourself. You're going to say something?
I love that. The awareness, because if someone does not even know they think a certain way or notice the way that it contributes to their life, how can you ever change anything without the awareness? I love that
Exactly.
because it's just the fundamental piece of understanding why do we behave the way we do.
Yeah. And what would be a better thought once you're aware of it? Then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, what would be better here? What if I change the thought and thought, oh, this will be fun when I get there, or I'll be fine,
Right.
And then the T and act is really start to train your brain with this new pattern of thinking of what you can do differently, because you really can. And yeah, it does take some work and it can be a practice. But that's kind of the basis of a lot of what I do with clients. Let me help you think through and be more aware. What are you thinking in that situation? Can we come up with a better thought that would get you a better outcome?
Mhm. Where in energy work, for me, the way I see it, some very similar, dynamic is I ask people to create what do they want in the future because energetically that is creating an alignment into that future projection. And then therefore, once a decision is made of what they want, then the universe can help bring those pieces together. Guides can help bring those pieces together, but without a vision of what they want into the future, we can't help on an energy level. And so it's
Mhm.
a very different way to look at something, it's a different side of the box, but energetically, I see that the universe wants to help us, guides want to help us, the energy fields want to come in together and help, but without recognition of what they want in the future, a decision, then everybody's hands are tied. And I just love how you walk through that. Um,
It's pretty
gracefully.
straightforward, isn't
Yeah.
it? But the other part to what you're saying, I think you have to ask. And I think that's what people don't understand, that you are active. You have to be active in your process to change. It's not passive in that sense, oh, just do it to me, counselor. No, you really do have to be active in this. Ask for what you want. What is your focus for the future? And so that then together, and yeah, and then you bring in a whole nother realm of ways to do it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Where I love that you're also holding their hand through the process, where that's
Yeah.
not part of what I do,
Yeah,
that's
I do.
this big disconnect between, part of this. You're really helping them, holding their hand through each of those sections, where mine is more of like future energy alignment piece of it. So I love
Yeah.
those hand holding pieces because it is really important. Some people can't
Yeah,
do it
because
just
people
for
are,
the picture in the
yeah,
future.
there's something they're scared. And that's where I think asking for help is really, really important.
Yeah.
So I just want to go through a few more of the advanced energy techniques that I'm going to demonstrate though next show.
Yeah.
But one is a breathing technique that I just did a whole show on because it's so critical and so important. It's breath work, and we hear about a lot. But this one is specifically to stimulate the vagus nerve, that will then send a calming chemical into your system. And so it's really important that this is a practice, and it's one of the simplest things I have found and one of the most powerful ones. And then from that, I was kind of given this emotional tension release that includes the breathing to calm and the emotional tension relief. You find something in your body that's held there as a stuck emotion, and you just breathe through it and be present with it. It releases. So there can be some super simple ones. And there's also another one, three scenes, that I'll also do that is an updated version of NLP, of Jose Silva's um, technique. that you really just use your visualization, imagery part of your brain. And so it can really solve things really simply. It really goes down into your subconscious.
Mm.
So there's so much more that we can share on this, but it looks like we're out of time. I just heard the buzzer.
Yep.
So you guys can always find out more at esapros.com to get a certified psychiatric service dog or emotional support animal with me, Joanne Williams. Or for more on your life purpose, too, you can go with Sarah Fien and do sessions with her at seraphiene.com, SERRAPHINE.com. Or Anxiety Simplified, also podcast. Like I said, we're on all major platforms. Our radio show on Power Me Up Station on iHeartRadio is Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. And we also have that second edition on Mondays at 4:30. So please check us out because this is for you, basically. But this is never a replacement for any kind of therapy or medical attention. If you ever need it, always reach out and take care of yourself and live your purpose.